Hi everyone, welcome back to Animal Science. We're going to cover chapter 2 tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through it in 15 minutes, so you might have to watch 2 of these things. Anyway, there's a huge amount of information in this chapter, and I just want you to know, for those of you that are struggling to get the book right now, I totally understand, and should be able to get your homework done this week, and I imagine a lot of you are going to get your books this week. So that's good. And I also said that you could use the other edition. So anyway. So let's take a look at chapter 2. So chapter 2 looks at the livestock industry in the United States. And it's really packed full of a huge amount of information. It'd be great to use for, some kind of report or something that you have to do. We're just going to go through slides, and if I were you, I would take some notes, and I will just tell you some of the highlights, and those are kind of pertaining to the quiz and your questions you're going to have to answer. So, first of all, if you take a look at the United States, if we look at the state that generates the most income from livestock and livestock products, the state really stands out to me is Texas, which is pretty amazing. California actually ranks number 1 in agricultural production, thanks to all the fruits, nuts, and veggies we produce, but not in livestock production. So Texas is numero uno. And then I think we also look over here at this tiny state, this tiny but mighty state. And if you know your geography, you know that's Iowa. So Iowa is probably second by my look, and then maybe California is third in terms of cash receipts. So for your future knowledge, the livestock industry is very important in the United States. There are about 330 million people in the United States, and most of them consume animal proteins. So this is just a quick graph of kind of the cattle industry a little bit. But it just shows the cyclical nature of the prices for livestock. And a lot of times livestock prices fall and rise depending on the weather, like if there's droughts. They fall and rise depending on the price of feed commodities, especially corn. So you can see that this shows 3 different categories of cattle. Steer calves, of course, are these would be weaned calves at this weight, just weaned off their moms. And then feeder steers are steers that are a little bit bigger. They're going into a feedlot to be finished out. And then fed steers are steers that are fat and ready to go to slaughter. But you can see all the prices for all of them are pretty volatile. The smaller they are, the more valuable they are per pound. You can kind of see that. Okay, this slide shows again prices, and again the most notable thing is the volatility, the up and down. We're never straight, and that has put a lot of livestock farmers out of business, because when you're a small business, in this case a hog producer, you can't weather the low points because you don't have enough money to get you through when prices are extremely low. So we're talking just above $20 a hundredweight for hogs. So that is very, very low prices. So again, the hog market is influenced by producers' costs, which is feed, the price of corn, and the hog market is also influenced by the export market, because pork is in high demand in one of the countries we export to, which is China. Not California, but other states in the U.S. So when we look at hog prices, again, you notice the volatility. And again, that volatility, you should know, has caused consolidation of the livestock industry into larger and larger, more vertically integrated farms. This one is a picture of sheep. Oh my goodness. Lambs. And really, lamb prices in the U.S. have been just not very good historically. The prices have been fairly low, and that's because, the demand for lamb is not great in the U.S. So it's kind of shown kind of a steady decline. That's the gray dotted one. And you can see some really low prices. And that has to do with the main competition and how laws and regulations are made for the sheep industry. So in the United States, we produce a fair amount of lamb, but you have to remember Australia in particular produces a huge amount of lamb, and lamb is a sheep under 1 year of age, and that's what we eat primarily in this country. We don't eat much older sheep called mutton. But what happens when we have trade agreements and things where we allow a lot of imports, then a lot of times that has an impact on the price of lambs. This is more interesting though because it shows the season of the year. And typically seasonality is really important in demand for lamb because the demand for lamb is highest during 2 times of the year, and that's typically around Easter and around the holidays of Christmas and Thanksgiving. Okay. This is a picture of broiler prices. A broiler is a meat chicken, and it kind of shows you, I think it's funny that they show cents per pound, but that's okay. So a broiler is a meat chicken, and in the U.S., California grows a fair amount. You're all familiar with Foster Farms and maybe Purdue Farms. But a lot of chicken in the U.S. is not grown in California. It's grown in the southeastern states like Alabama, Arkansas, and those states. Broiler prices are always highest in the summertime. So you can see this particular year, it shows the average. But you can see prices always uptick during summer, and I bet you can answer why. It's because that's barbecue season. So the demand for chicken is highest in the summer and spring and summer months, and it's lowest, during, the more winter months when we're doing more crock pot cooking and maybe a little less grilling outside. Turkey demand, of course, everyone can predict this. If you look at just the general trend in prices, you will notice that, of course, turkey production peaks in demand, peaks in prices right before Thanksgiving. So here's a little news flash for you. If you buy a fresh turkey for Thanksgiving, chances are that turkey was actually harvested in October and was put in cold storage for almost a month, which is stored at 29 degrees, so it's really very cold. But it is kind of interesting because the peak prices are in advance of Thanksgiving. So that's turkeys. Here's dairy milk prices according to time of year. And some of you may remember during the COVID outbreak, in the midst of things right around April and May, we saw a lot of dairies dumping milk. And that oftentimes has to do with the surplus, and it has to do with the lack of capacity at processors. And it had to do with the changing demands. Once everyone decided to go home, we weren't giving the little cartons of milk out to the little kids at elementary school. We were not using milk and dairy products so much in restaurants because no one was going out to eat. So there was a huge surplus of milk. And that just pains me when I see, that huge amount of work going down the drain. But maybe that's news to you. So one of the things you can kind of see, kind of a general trend, and really hasn't changed too much, even if you have the more recent book. The trend in milk prices are always low during, early spring and winter. And it just has to do with the fact that after Christmas, we all go on diets. And the first thing we cut out of our diet is dairy because, that's supposed to be bad for you. It's high in saturated fats and all kinds of things. Really, dairy I believe, is very nutritious, high protein, high in calcium. It's got a lot of good things. But that is why milk prices are always sluggish in the beginning of the year. As the year presses on and we get to now, September, October, November, December, people start baking. You have school lunches. Everyone gets up in the morning and cooks or, has some kind of breakfast. Oftentimes it's cereal with milk, maybe not dairy milk, might be some other kind of milk. You have toast with butter. So you start using more dairy products. So dairy products are always higher. Prices are always higher and demand is higher for dairy products in the wintertime. Okay, this just shows the volatility of wool prices, and it's really over, quite a long time period. And so a lot of countries in the world produce wool. China, I think, produces the most wool. The U.S. recently, and this is really old, But even if you look at the more modern one, wool has like made a grand resurgence, and I'm happy to see that because I raise sheep. But wool is in demand because it is a natural fiber, and right now we're all into natural fibers like, you know, an organic cotton and, you know, fibers that come from a natural source. So the demand for wool is actually up, and just like it was in 2011, it's up. And wool is a byproduct kind of sheep. The primary, when we raise sheep, generally our primary source of incomes comes from selling the lambs for meat, and wool is kind of a additional benefit. But some years the prices are so low it doesn't even pay it for itself to be sheared off the sheep. Okay, keep going. So one of your questions, I believe, has to do with this grain right here, and I'll try to get you to remember something about corn. Corn is the most important grain that we raise in America. It is the most important grain because we feed it to livestock. And there is a trend that people think it's bad to feed corn to livestock. If it was bad, we would not be able to be as efficient as we are today. So you have to remember there's 33 million people in the United States, and we all like to consume eggs, we all like to consume bacon and things that come from animals that have a diet that is very high in corn. So the price of corn oftentimes influences the price of animals that eat corn. And pigs and chickens are the biggest corn eaters. They're monogastrics. Corn is the most efficient grain to feed livestock. And when you're in business to make a profit, you cannot feed alternative feeds that are not efficient. And if you want to look at carbon footprints and global warming and all that kind of stuff, we still need to be efficient, and that is what minimizes our carbon footprint and things like that. So feeding corn is not bad for animals. It's good for them. It's very high in calories, and it allows them to gain weight and convert food to protein very efficiently. So when I talk about grains in the U.S. and cereal grains, the primary cereal grain that we feed livestock in the U.S. is corn. So this is kind of an interesting slide. And basically, I do have a question on your quiz, I think, about this. This just shows a production cycle for 4 different species. And basically shows how many months an animal is pregnant. So cows are pregnant for 9 months, just like people. They are weaned at about so they stay with their mom for about 7 months, 6 or 7 months. And then if they're a stalker, that means they go out on a grassy pasture up in the foothills and live there for about 3 months and gain weight till about 700 or 800 pounds. And then they go to a feedlot where they're finished for about 4.5 months. So this whole process from birth until actually the animals harvest and put in the food supply for cattle probably takes 2 years. I'm not sure, I didn't add up those months. But the process of actually, the animal actually being on earth and consuming food is a total of 14 months. So if you want to know how old are cattle when they're processed or slaughtered, they're about 14 and a half months. Swine, pigs are pregnant for 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, so 3.75 months. And then they spend about 60 days, actually it's a lot shorter than that in some situations, with a sow, their mom. And then they go to a finishing operation where they're fed out, and then they're harvested when they're about 5 to 6 months old. Turkeys and poultry in general are very efficient feed converters and have a very short generation interval. Hence, the affordable price of turkey and broiler chicken meat to the consumer, and hence the expensive cost of beef. It takes much longer to produce beef. I'm at about 14 and a half minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and call it quits there, and I'll see you on the next round. I'm going to make 2 slide presentations tonight. Okay, I'll see you later.